The following is a Productions original series.
Hello and welcome to Walk and Roll Live. I'm Doug Vincent, along with Addie Rich. Our podcast is dedicated to amplifying the voices of the disability community. I am a polio survivor, and Addie
has cerebral palsy still. I have not found the magic cure yet.
My usual question: how was your week? Did you have a good week? You were traveling and work stuff, right? No.
Yeah, work stuff. I'm traveling this coming week.
This coming week
is the travel. I took a day off and I regretted it instantaneously.
Oh, okay. All right. I'm sorry. Because you've got like, what, 2 or 3 trips planned in the next few weeks? I know. I'm trying to keep them all in my scrambled mind. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'm a busy bee.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are.
But looking forward to the upcoming week. Last week was trying to get ready for this week because I'm going to be like a ghost in the wall. You know, I got an amazing opportunity. We've talked about my ADAPT DRG at work. Mm-hmm. I am super blessed and super lucky to be sent to the Disability End Conference coming up in Dallas this coming week.
Awesome.
But that means my focus for the week is not going to be like my daily work. Right. It is going to be networking, and I have a really cool opportunity to represent my parent company and all that stuff.
Which is sponsoring the event?
We're sponsoring a part of the event, yes. We are helping to sponsor a caregiver roundtable, and I get to, accept an award that I can talk about after I accept the award, all those kind of things. But awesome. I get to represent the disability community more than the work be next week.
All right. But the work will wait for you when you come back.
That is a promise, ladies and gentlemen, a promise. Yeah. How was your week?
It was good. Kind of a typical week. Went to dinner with the car guys and all that. Went to one of my favorites, and we kind of have a few that we just kind of circle around. And one of them's a little Mexican restaurant called Green Onion. Yeah, very good. Yeah, I had. It was nice because I ordered the taco and burrito combo, and I just knew the burrito would be big, so I just had. That night I had the taco and then rice and beans, and then saved the burrito for a couple of days later, so I didn't have to cook. So that always works out well.
I mean, isn't that a rite of passage of aging? Is that you learn to order food that will count as 2 meals? I feel like that's always what I do. If there's anything I'm worried about it only feeding me at that trip, I don't order it. I order something that I'm like, this must either convert into dinner tonight and lunch tomorrow or dinner for 2 days.
They figured it out at, we used to go to a thing like once a month at Sizzler, a meeting. And, and I'm looking at the menu and I noticed that they had the Malibu chicken on one part of the menu. And it was like, at the time, $13.99 is probably almost twice that now. But then on another part of the menu, they had these combo specials, and it was the Malibu chicken and the unlimited salad bar.
Okay.
For $13.99. And I'm like, part of me wanted to say, hey, do you know that? But I'm like, nope, I would keep that quiet. So every time I go in, I would get that. And that night, and the Sizzler salad bar has, you can make your own tacos. You can do all that stuff on the salad bar. Yeah. So I would do the salad bar that one night, take the Malibu chicken and rice and bread and all that home, and have that another night. But so, and I've turned into a cliche, like an old person. I go to bed by 8 o'clock. I get up early.
You know what?
Dinner at 4.
I'm a cliche right along with you, 40 years early, because I swear, Mom has always said I'm an old soul. I'm owning it with my bedtime, my eating habits.
Look at us, for crying out loud. And then also in all of that, I've been kind of working on the website like I have been a few last few weeks, but I created a new category, transportation. So there's a lot of resources in there for accessible traveling. And next I'm kind of adding to the assistive technology and trying to get some more things in there.
Which is amazing.
Yeah.
As the person who does not drive and who has been working on my upcoming travel stuff, accessible travel stuff is super important to not creating so much stress. I get more stressed about the travel and getting to and fro than the event itself. So hopefully we can help people with that.
Yeah, that's my feelings exactly. And then also,
we get letters. Oh, so many letters, and it's time to share them with you.
and we've gotten more letters more consistently lately. I just haven't had time to get to them, but I thought I'd share one with you today. It's from Maria. I just wanted to let you know, Doug and Addie, how much I appreciate you sharing your live talk shows with me as I continue to learn about the journeys and experiences of the individuals with disabilities that share their stories on your show. So I appreciate that. It's kind of self-serving there, but I love those comments. But if you have anything that maybe is a little more critical, we'll take that too. We'll do whatever we can to improve what we're doing here. So let us know. All right, thank you. A big thank you to this week. It was. I used to write that down because my brain doesn't remember, but I can go look at the calendar very, very quickly. Who was it? Becky Curran. Exactly. Listening back to it, I've said this, I know a couple times, but just when we're in that moment, it's sometimes hard to really kind of capture all of what they're saying. So when I go back and listen, she just made so many great points, was so articulate in sharing those points with us. It was pretty amazing. So thank you, Becky, for sharing with us. And are you seeing her next week?
Yes, I was going to say, I will see her on Monday night or Tuesday. So Becky is part of the roundtable that Sonapart is helping to sponsor, and so we get to hang out a little bit. And I look forward to hugging her. For me, I always say I want to hug people through the screen.
Yes,
so
yeah.
This one, Becky knows she can't get away from me.
Very good. And then also, I think that's it. Coming up today, we've got Geoff Quevedo. He is a veteran of the Afghanistan war, and he's one of those young men that came home with a disability, and we'll hear his story. We're honored to have him on to share that with us, and we'll do that right after we come back from this word from Magyar Professional Training.
At Magyar Professional Training, we know that your greatest asset is your team. Investing in their development, knowledge, and happiness is essential for your business's success and growth. To achieve new heights, it's important to hire intelligent, talented individuals and empower them to excel in their areas of strength and passion. Magyar is committed to transforming your employees into happier, more productive, and fulfilled individuals. When your team thrives, your business prospers. Wise leaders understand that providing team members with opportunities to shine in their strengths unlocks untapped potential. Elevate your team with Magyar Professional Training and witness the growth of your business.
From the Magyar Professional Training Studios, you're listening to Walk and Roll Live, Disability Stories.
We've told a lot of stories. There's been so many glories. We've seen incredible changes, each with beautiful changes. Doug, yeah, Addie too. It's another Tuesday and we're gonna do it. Tell another disability story, a walk and roll life story. Everyone's listening, always very soothing.
Well, welcome back to Walk and Roll Live. I am Doug. Addie is here as well. And this is where the rubber meets the road. We bring the guest in and we get to know them.
For sure.
Yeah, right?
Tired of the two of us.
That's
Let's bring it
right.
down.
We yap on. So we're going to turn things over primarily to Geoffrey Quevedo and let him tell his story. So first, well, there's your name. How about where you're from, basically, and your disability?
Hi, my name is Jeffrey Quevedo. I'm from the Central Valley, right here in California, around Tulare County. I was born and raised in Cutler, the town called Cutler, and then moved to a town in Fresno County, Wheatley.
I remember.
And then
I've heard of Reedley.
currently I'm a double amputee, left arm above elbow and below knee. I was a Symes amputee at the beginning because it was just my toes that got blown off. But that's where they had to make the decision on where I wanted to be cut. They told me either right there at the toes.
So initially, they're just trying to save your life.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes. I was
right,
in a
yeah.
medically induced coma for a week.
Yeah.
And I have shrapnel damage from my waist down. I have when the bomb went off, it blew my face, so that's why you see the facial scars. I have traumatic brain injury from that blast.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, let's table that,
So that
for a
brought
little
you
bit.
to the disabled community.
Yeah, we'll get into that, but we want to know a little bit more about Geoff in the early years. You know, the days in your life in Cutler, and then you moved to the big city in Reedley,
The bigger city, yeah.
bigger city, right? So, what were you like as a kid, and what were your interests?
Honestly, as a kid, I was a pretty good kid. We just, again, grew up Mexican family, first generation American. So, you know, it's just work for what you have. You know, nothing in life is free.
Yep.
You know, so that kind of mentality, philosophy. I was actually trying to be like a doctor, you know, or something like in medical, because, you know, sometimes when my mom would get hurt, my brother, or, you know, little cuts and stuff, I'd get my little first aid kit. And, you know, I always wanted to be a doctor, apparently. And somehow it shifted back when, again, I started growing interest in the Army. And then my brother-in-law ended up joining back in, I think, 03, because he did the first straight of Fallujah back in 04, 05. So that inspired me and motivated me to join the service.
You have memories of 9/11.
I have the only memory that I really have is when it happened. I was in school. I was in elementary school, and then I remember just the whole school got called to go outside and go do the Pledge of Allegiance and stuff. And then we just did the Pledge of Allegiance, and then eventually going home, and yeah, that's all you saw on TV is war, and I didn't know what that was, or, you know, again, it's just, you think something you see on TV.
Yeah.
You know,
and your
and
older
something-
brother responded, and you know, every little kid seems to want to emulate their older brother or sister. So,
Well, he was my brother-in-law.
brother-in-law, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, he was dating my sister and stuff at the time when they first started getting together, and, you know, talking, and then he deployed or went to the Army, and now they're married. Obviously, my oldest nephew, or their kid, just graduated high school, literally like last week or 2 weeks. Actually, after I saw you, I went to their graduation. So yeah, that's why I've been busy.
Yeah, I met Geoff through a friend of mine, and his son-in-law was in the service, and he was at the same party, you know, celebrating the little boy's birthday, and we got to talking, obviously. You know, like I say, I'm always stalking somebody to come on the show. So I see a guy with one leg and one arm. I gotta see what the story is. So I'm glad
Josh and I went in basic training together. I don't know if we got that far, but we went in basic training together, and we kept in touch throughout all these years. So
That's awesome.
So I think you were telling me that day that the dream kind of shifted from maybe being a doctor to you really wanted to be in the military and follow that.
Yeah. So when, can you hear me? It was literally when my brother-in-law left. You know, I started seeing like the cool little, like from basic training, the cheesy, you know, U.S. Army logo on the top, and he would write my sister. And then when he deployed, like she would send him care packages and stuff like that. And then just, you know, I'm like, what is it like to be a American soldier? You know, like, again, you know, growing up the way we did, you know, predominantly Mexican household thinking and all that, like, oh, you know, American soldier. And I'm like, that's so cool, dude. You know, I'm just like thinking like that's something to look forward to, you know, and
kind of a romanticized version of it though, right?
What do you mean?
Yeah, just you know, you don't see all the bad stuff, you see the cool stuff at first.
No, yeah, you don't see, yeah, absolutely. Right? Just like all you heard was the words and what you saw on TV.
Yeah.
You know, and then and then again, what your chain of command, your parents are how they're putting it down towards you.
Yeah.
You know, don't worry about it. It's nothing to you, or whatever it was.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm like, all right, cool. It's nothing to me. And then, of course, the more you start understanding it, when my brother-in-law came back too, and you know, he came back. You know, he was a combat veteran too, a combat engineer, and came back with, you know, PTSD and stuff. Couldn't talk about it, especially again, we were talking about Vietnam veterans and stuff, on how like we can't talk about it. And it's just like, oh, the war did this to you. Oh, he's just crazy. Oh, he'll get over it. And if you don't want to, that's his decision. That was his kind of predicament. You know, especially, you know, him also growing up Hispanic, and, you know, like, oh, get over it and tough it up. And, you know, you chose to do that. That was your job. And so, yeah, that was kind of getting to see that side of it, you know, when he came back, and, you know, him, my sister, you know, how they worked through all that. And, you know, I was right there too. And yeah, you know, got to see that.
So you
and I'm
saw
like,
a lot
man,
of
this
it.
is
Yeah.
crazy. And I'm like, yeah, I saw the before, during, and the after, you know, the effects on my brother-in-law. And, you know, I'm like, you know what? I still want to go.
What is
That's
the
what I'm
age
like, all right,
difference?
like, if he can do it, I can do it. He's 42 and I'm 34.
Okay, so I mean, it's like one
Yeah,
generation
because he's 2
almost.
years older than my
Yeah.
sister.
So it's one generation. So
Yeah.
he's closer to my age because I taught middle school when September 11th happened. It was my second week of teaching middle school
Oh,
ever. And I had moved to Georgia with Teach for America. All the phone lines were busy. Similar to you, like go outside and do the Pledge of Allegiance. My school had a bomb shelter underneath of it because of the old of it. And because I'm in Atlanta, we were very close to the CDC. And at the time, there was the worry that they were coming for the CDC, whoever they were, right? Because what was happening. So they made us take the kids to the bomb shelter. Here I am, I'm 21. I suddenly feel very 21 because all these kids are saying, "What's happening? What's happening?" And all we're hearing from the office is take the kids to the shelter and you're going to stay in there until somebody tells us to come out. Suddenly, I wasn't Miss Rich in front of the classroom. I literally was like, I want my mom. And I'm cross country. So it's interesting. That's why I kind of wanted to understand the story, because I was like, your brother-in-law and I might have been similarly aged. Like we were both put in these,
You know,
situations.
that's both those stories, you know, can I tell you, nobody knew what to do. You know, we didn't know really what to do at the radio station. The morning show was on when it happened, so they covered it really well. And the rest of us just wanted to do something. And I remember back then, everybody gave blood, and they don't even know why they were giving blood. Well,
Yeah.
you know, what's that going to do for your own community? But you just felt compelled to do something. And I know we went to the blood bank, me and one of my other colleagues, and we went to the VFW and interviewed guys. Just, I don't even know if we actually ever put them on the air. We just wanted to feel like we were doing something. So, yeah, I can
sure.
imagine where, you know, you still wanted to do something.
Yeah.
Well, I wanted, again, my brother-in-law pretty much gave me hope, you know, and again, you know, as a kid, that's all you fantasize is having a good job, good career, you know, be a cop, get a big house, you know, all that kind of stuff. And, you know, and I'm like, if he can do it, I can do it. You know, he's Mexican, you know, he's a soccer player. I'm like, I can do that too. I'm a soccer player, you know, and I'm like, I can do that. And, you know, I was working at my uncle's restaurant, you know, at a very young age. So I'm like, you know, money and working was more physical labor, obviously, in the Hispanic culture is very big. And, you know, obviously you make money, you go to school, and that's what it was. So I'm like, all right, well, you know, he did it, I did it, and he gave me the inspiration and the motivation. I know you don't like hearing that these days, or obviously, especially when I first got blown up, because, you know, again, your mentor, not really your mentor, but the guy you looked up to, you know, is the one reason why you got blown up. And I'm like, no, that's not the reason why I got blown up. Like,
So he had
and
some
I tell him
guilt.
all the time, I'm like, you don't need to blame yourself, man. Yeah, I'm like, you don't need to blame yourself, man. Like, you know, like, if anything, again, like, you motivated me, and little me would be happy, would be proud of, like, the cool little gadgets and the toys and the places I've been, and, you know, everything now, you know. And again, it takes a long time or a different perception to make you, not make you, but have you acknowledge that, and because again, we're hard on ourselves, especially being disabled and all this, and obviously the bad divorce stuff, it makes you think of things, and you're like, no, I shouldn't feel bad for this, and I don't, and takes me a while, but yeah, I'm like, no, I don't feel bad for making my decisions. And I tell my brother-in-law, you shouldn't either. Again, what did you do? Nothing. You just literally did your dream and your job and whatever you did. And I'm like, you gave me hope. And I said, you know what? I'm going to do it too.
Yeah, everybody has a path, right? And the path is the path, and how it unwinds is not. There's no energy to be spent on blame, because the energy is finite, right? So the blame does nothing. You're an independent entity, and you made a choice because someone inspired you. Does it totally suck that it turned out a different way than you thought it would? Absolutely. Is there a lot going forward? Absolutely. So I think it's perfect and spend of energy, right? So
did you choose the Army because your brother-in-law was in the Army?
Yes, I did. Actually, I like to, especially being from the Central Valley, predominantly Mexicans or Hispanics. When they're like, join the Marines, and I'm like, yeah, because you guys watch Blood In, Blood Out, and then you watch them go in the Marines. I'm like, and they're like, why'd you join the Army? I'm like, oh, because my brother-in-law. Yeah. that's really what I say, because obviously in the movie he goes to the Marines.
Right.
So you go down, you enlist, and in boot camp and all that good stuff starts, huh?
Yeah, where I met Joshua Harrison. I met him at boot camp. I didn't know him before then. I met him, and then we went from there from October of 2010 to February of 2011. And we get told as soon as we get to Fort Drum, New York, we're gonna deploy in a month. So we literally deployed the April 4th, I think, of 2011.
Did you feel like over that, what now you're talking 3 to 4 months, did you grow up a lot in that time?
I was kind of telling Addie about this, and the differences between upbringings and then what the military teaches people. I was taught, work ethic, discipline, respect, tough love, all that, growing up, and, so going into the military is mainly like, all right, now how do you incorporate that into the military now, being physically fit, not complaining, not asking questions, and like respecting your chain of command. I'm like, oh, cool, it's easy.
It's home.
But
it's home with boundaries. Yeah,
it's home. And I'm like, at the time, I'm like, cool, like push-ups, it's running and all that, and then now you get to learn weapons. Obviously, we didn't grow up in my family. We didn't grow up around weapons and guns and all that, so. You're like, oh dang, I don't know how to shoot, and I guess we're gonna figure it out. Barely Call of Duty, the video games, that kind of stuff, but very different. So yeah, that's where I really learned. That's really probably the only thing that the Army really taught me was weapons and vehicles and all that. Obviously, just my shooting guns like twice before then, before the Army, and like working on my '93 Honda Accord was probably the only type of shooting and mechanics I ever did. So, Army, definitely taught me weapons and vehicles and, and history, American history, the flag and, the wars and how it was fought, what happened, that kind of stuff, that different perspective on what schools actually teach you, in history. And obviously they don't want to teach you war history, but the little bits and pieces that they did, where you finally put it together, and it's like, oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Then you're deployed. Where do you go?
We got deployed, so we barely went to. So getting there, obviously, going to Germany, flew into Germany, went into Kuwait, waited there like 2 days, and then went to Afghanistan to Kandahar Airfield. And then from there, we waited. We're getting briefed, we're getting PowerPoints, we're getting mini trainings here and there, on prepping us for what's to come and the next year deployment that we're supposed to be there. We're supposed to be there a whole year. So they're just trying to like, all right, for, that kind of stuff, what area you're moving to. The Arghandab Valley is the valley we ended up going to at first. And then like halfway through the deployment, they ended up moving us to this place in Kandahar province called the Maiwan district. So from there is where my guys finish the deployment. Of course, when I got blown up, it was November 30th, so they said like 4 or 5 more months. So
So
like, yeah, like 3 or 4 months.
you had been there, you started in April, so you had been there like
6, 7
7
months.
months.
Well, I was a mine detector, so I used to find the IEDs and caches and stuff. I was the point man, so I was the one leading the formation.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. How that looks. So you're the guy that leads everybody else, and what equipment behind you?
Equipment in front of me. We're dismounted, so we're walking. We're a light infantry unit. In order to get to point A to point B in Afghanistan, since they were putting all the IEDs and the bombs and stuff, you can't just casually walk and go to the village. So I was the point man with the Valen operator, with the Valen machine or the Minehound machine that they both gave me. Yeah, to uncover fancy metal, or not even fancy, but metal detection machines. Helping lift something. And then you're just hoping. And again, you go off of your instinct and you go off of your little dummy courses that you had, and eventually finding one, you find another one, then you find another one, and then of course keep getting better and better at it. You figure things out, you start looking around.
So you did this for 7 months successfully, and then what happened that day? Do you feel like do you remember that day? I guess first of all, and then do you remember where things kind of went awry, or just is that lost?
I remember everything up until the point, and then from there it was just everybody's stories.
Yeah.
Because obviously whatever hit my face put me in a medical-induced coma for a week.
Yeah.
So so the day was November 30th, 2011. We were clearing out a compound we knew because for IED, as an IED warehouse, so a bunch of IEDs, a bunch of caches, that's where they would go. And we were finding things left and right the days before. That day we were clearing for a couple hours already. I had one area, my partner had another area, and we were already done. And then we're all sitting down, and then his squad leader is basically antagonizing him and doing pointing down the alleyway, and pretty much what was being said to him was, I bet there's something down this alleyway. Oh, I bet there's, we should check it out. We should check it out. And then he's prepping his machine, and then his squad leader sits down, and then I'm like, what? And I go over there and I look at him, and I'm like, what are you doing? Why are you prepping your machine? And he's like, I'm just going to check this alleyway real quick so we don't got to do it tomorrow. And I'm like, why? We go back and forth. Of course, things are said, him being macho man, I'm being macho man. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to let you go down alone, man. What happens to you happens to me. And then he's like, all right, let's go. And then so we did. Eventually we did. And we get to the end of the alleyway. We get a hit on the machine, and my left arm was forward. My left foot was for my legs, and he was uncovering whatever he got a hit on. And then the IED went off.
But so that part of it, you remember that you had located something?
Yeah, we had found something. Yeah, because I had in the middle of the alleyway, he got a hit, but it ended up being nothing. So every time he got a hit, he would hand it to me. So yeah, when he was like, "Here, hold the machine," when he got the hit at the end, because obviously the last thing you need is the machine to fall on the IED.
Yeah.
The times that we had the option to take our stuff off, like our mags or whatever, we would take them off. We didn't set off an IED. Accidentally falling, dropping your phone will set off an IED. So yeah, you imagine. So that's why, I was carrying the machine when he was probing at it, and that's when the bomb went off.
Did you guys trigger it, or was somebody viewing this from afar and triggered it?
I don't think. See, that question has came up multiple times. I just think it was definitely an IED that was put there. They were using non-metallic materials and stuff in the area too. So yeah, it was just they would leave it there, and just like your batteries on your remote, eventually the battery will die. So yeah, when they would put it, they would be like, oh, it'll last like a month or two. And then sometimes we would find multiple IEDs that were active, but the battery was just dead. And we're like, oh, dang.
So close. Yeah.
Yes,
close. And then that's when you're like, dang, the battery was just dead. And like, oh, wow. But eventually, And then so, we didn't know. I couldn't tell you what it was. Obviously, my partner can't tell you what it was, but
he perished.
He lived for 5.5 years, and then he committed suicide. He was a double leg amputee above and below the knee. The hand that he was using to probe got split in half, but they were able to save it. And Unfortunately, he committed suicide 5.5 years later.
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah, it's been a road, and it's been tough. And obviously, again, he had a hard time dealing with his disabilities and people staring at him, and
Yeah.
his partner at the time too wasn't helping, and obviously he hated why people would ask. He hated he hated why people would look, because obviously he wasn't done being a soldier, and neither was I, but obviously he had a harder time dealing with it. And I always kept trying to talk him out of it, and he's always, you're too motivated for me, you're too positive for me, and he's like, this sucks, man. And I'm like, yeah, it sucks, but at least you have me, but yeah, it wasn't enough. But
probably one of the obviously most extreme cases that we've ever talked about here, but this is why we talk about all the time on this show. It's our mantra now is, find your community, find people who have gone through this so that you can talk about it. You can kind of get it out and know that, even us, Addie and I, we've grown up with this, and we've, had the stares since before we can even remember. And, people asking questions, little kids, they have no filter. They'll just, in earshot.
Little kids.
And
yeah.
But when you have your community,
I mean, we could get,
go ahead.
We could get into that. Well, I mean, if we're talking about the disabled community, we can get into that right now too.
Well, definitely. I wanted to real quickly.
That's where again.
Want to go through, when you woke up and how rehab was, that kind of thing.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. We can talk a little bit about that.
We'll come back to that part. Yeah. We'll come back to the disabled community part because that'd be pretty cool.
That's probably the biggest reason.
So when I woke up,
Geoff, is because we want to hear about how you're doing today and what you're doing for the community. Yes. So go ahead.
When you woke up.
When I apparently also trying to get up after the blast. And then when I woke up and finally knew what was going on, that's when I was like, why am I in a blue room? Why is there this and that? Like we're living out of our trucks. We're in dirt. We're in Afghanistan. What are we doing in a room? And that's when, the nurse walks in and drops everything on me. And that's where I'm like, that's where, I'm very shocked as a recent 20-year-old, I'm like,
you're like, hold the phone. This isn't,
I'm like, what do you mean?
In the alleyway. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, what do you mean? I'm like, I was jumping 8-foot walls and a beast, I was, doing this, and how am I blown up? And then it was a trip, realizing it. And then, first thing I'm asking for is my partner, my brother, my sister, my family. I'm like, there's no way he made it. I'm like, I was standing over him. And then they're like, no, he made it. He's alive. And then since we were sarcastic assholes, again, we had a mantra and a saying. It was more the Rangers mantra and the saying, but we altered it because we like to piss off our commander. It was Rangers lead the way all the way, and the other guy says all the way. So I'm like, do you see any Rangers in front of us? And he's like, no. And so we switched it and said Minehounds lead the way, and we're all the way, and just we'd do that in front of the commander to piss him off. And so I had my family and his family go ask him, and the nurses like, hey, tell him this and see what he says. And so he would tell me, or he would tell him the response all the way, and I'm like, all right.
Yeah.
And so eventually he was my strength.
He was remember that.
He was my strength to finally get out of bed, because they didn't let us see each other, even be on the phone. Like I'm like, I want to know for real, like, and they're like, no, until you're on your wheelchair transferring, then you can go see him. I'm like, that's BS, man. I'm like, I just want to see him and stuff. But that's what motivated me to. I was on a feeding tube, a chest tube, catheter, the drain, the blood, the drains from both your nubs. So I couldn't move at all. My kneecap was broken too. So I'm basically like this the whole time. So when I was asking, they're like, you need to remove all these things little by little so you go see him. So finally the chest tube came out, catheter came out, feeding tube came out after certain calories a day, and that was my motivation right there. Like little simple goals. That first goal was to go see him. And that one was, I'm like, I don't care. And getting out of my bed was tiring enough, and getting in a wheelchair was tiring enough.
Yeah.
I mean, first time, and you're just like, oh my God, and so drugged up, and yeah.
At first listen, it seems like, man, they seem like they're kind of heartless, and but I think they know that that's the kind of thing that will motivate you, right?
Well, yes and no, but it was more of the heartless part, I would say, because even when I was asking for a mirror to see my face, like I'm like, can I see my face? And they're like, let's talk to mental health first, before you're able, because of course, that's what. And I get it. I understand it.
Yeah.
That's when people freak out and start pulling things out, and then, which, again, it's understandable.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
And anybody that's been there, done that, and seen a family member or a loved one will tell you that, like,
you're not prepared.
What makes you think that way? You're crazy. No, and again, at 20, again, you're sexy, you're, the peak of your prime there,
right.
Jumping 8-foot walls, combat, and yeah. Talk about having your world like flip upside down, now you can't even transfer out of your bed,
Yeah. What a shock.
Yeah. That was a pretty good, serious wake up call.
Yeah. So, once you come out of the coma, and and then you're starting to kind of get your head wrapped around all of this, is there another aspect to the recovery? They're healing your wounds, but now they're obviously cognizant of your your mental health. So are there support groups? What did you go through?
You're talking about the beginning, right?
Yeah, the beginning of your recovery post injury.
So we were still at Walter Reed, Bethesda, Maryland, obviously where all this is happening, and same thing with like the decisions of my toes, my Symes amputee. My family was, they had to consolidate my family, and then my family was asking me like, Gio, what do you think? And obviously they're like, he's a runner, he's go below knee right away. And I'm like, I thought at the time more was better. And I'm like, no, I'm going to try this out first. And if anything, I'll just cut it later. And yeah, I gave it a good 5 years on the Symes amputation. And then eventually ended up being a BK. But all that right there too, with same thing with the damage to my mouth. I couldn't eat nothing at the time. So it was just a feeding tube, or it was just yogurts. Because of the hole in my mouth, I had it since the blast. Put a hole in my mouth, put dentures, all this, and I had to be very selective on what I ate, especially with the infections. Everything's still open, so you don't want an infection in my mouth. And of course, every time I was trying to eat something, I was overly eating it because I was just excited to be eating something again. And so that was pretty hard, not eating stuff at the beginning. Not being able to see a bunch of floaters that I had on both eyes, my retinal rupture on my left eye too was and and again,
they did a nice
that's the
job. You're
realization
sexy
that-
again.
my brother likes to say that the bomb fixed my face. If anything, it made me more handsome.
Oh, yeah, you can count on a brother to say that.
To say something. Yeah, exactly. That's a brother comment.
Yeah. Oh, good.
Oh yeah, that's an older brother comment right there for sure. But yeah, I mean, I was there for just 2.5 weeks at Walter Reed, and then got transferred to Palo Alto VA, where I started to get cleared for my polytrauma since I took a hit to the face with my traumatic brain injury, and on top of everything else, of course, that's where they were putting all the combat guys. In the polytrauma unit, since clearly at the time I didn't know polytrauma meant multi injury.
Oh, okay.
And that's where I got to understand that, and then traumatic brain injuries, and of course, you don't know what an amputee is until you see it in a movie, growing up or whatever, and like, oh, you're not supposed to look at disabled people, or whatever. But yeah, now here I am, being one of them. And now I'm like, all right, well, now I'm an amputee. Like, how is this going to look? And, now I don't have a hand, so every time I would move, why am I moving my arm? But getting to be part of, we'll get there later, but part of Challenge Athletes and stuff, meeting other disabled people, like seeing, people that were born and pretty much raised in disability, and how they triumph better or different than like us that like kind of like your buddy that got shot or whatever, or us that are get blown up, we have all our limbs, we're perfectly fine, we're all this stuff, and then it gets taken away from us, and then there goes your arm and your leg, and you got to relearn everything. There goes the hit to your head, and now you got to relearn the alphabet, and how many months there are in a year, and who your parents are, and that's where it's like, damn, this is crazy. You got to relearn all this stuff again.
Yeah. I've said it many, many, many times. Is that I've grown up with it, so I don't know any different. And so the mental part is really the tough part, right? I mean, even as extensive as your wounds, you tell me. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I'm sure the emotional part is a bit tougher than the physical part.
Well, we can get into that in the later part of it, but it's still at the beginning because, obviously now it would be different. But next question regarding the beginning?
Well, because I think we're almost there to hear more about the work you're doing now. I want to hear that, but I think we'll just finish up with what your rehab, when it started, in earnest. Once you got out of the hospital, is that where you really started to learn how to navigate this new life?
So all right, now going into the San Jose Polytrauma VA. That's where I started, doing occupational therapy, physical therapy. That was, now it's starting to like, what's your amputated life gonna look like? And the whole, now you're an amputee. Now focus on, now you're disabled. You're not an able-bodied person. And it's like, no. And then you're like, yes. You're trying to say no, but of course your body is reminding you, yes. Now you're taking medications. Now you're taking blood thinners, because I had 16 units of blood pushed through me to save my life, blood transfusion. And so, and then again, the therapist, I think we talked about this, Doug, where that was where my first argument with somebody was. It was my occupational, I'm not going to say her name, my physical therapist, not going to say her name, but she was like, again, I was barely starting to put pressure on my Simon's amputation, and I was like, it hurts, I'm crying every time that I come on, try it, and I'm like, believe me, I'm trying, and then I just couldn't, right? And then there's the realization where I'm like, man, I may never walk again. Man, I can't even put pressure on it. The first time actually finally stepping on it. And then, she's right there tapping my shoulder and say, it's okay, let it out, that whole stuff. And then I'm like, all right. And then she's like, I had a broken ankle once, and, I know what it's like not to walk, and I'm like, and I just look at her, I'm like, no, you don't. I'm like, your ankle got better. And I'm like, this isn't going to grow back. Yeah, she said that. Yeah. And then I am, in my little manual wheelchair, like getting all mad, just rolling away. And I'm like, eventually next day I apologized to her. I'm like, look, I'm sorry I snapped at you. I'm like, clearly I'm in my moment. I'm in my feels on it hitting me finally, physically. I'm finally trying to be optimistic, get up out of bed and stand up, and I'm like, I can't. And I'm like, so for you to say, I had a broken ankle once, I'm like, yeah, you got better in 6 to 8 weeks. I'm like,
hey,
mine still hasn't grown back.
That is an appropriate response, though, Geoff. That is, I mean, I didn't go what you went through. I was a year old, and I had crutches and braces since I was a year old. But when people say that to me, and I've had people say, my brother had a broken ankle once, so I know what you go. Not even them, it's your brother went to it, so you think you know what I'm going through. It's like, come on. So appropriate response.
Yeah, I know. I can help you transfer. I can help you transfer because of my brother. Like, no, fool, you can't.
No, this is personal. So you went through that, and that's a long, hard fight that people don't see. You know what I mean? They kind of see the result of where you are now, and you probably feel like you're still making progress, right? I hope.
Well, yeah, again, you're never, as you know, well,
Yeah.
I mean, we're never really truly fulfilled, and especially with people, I think certain people, people will stay where they're at, but I feel like, again, as long as there's a beat in my heart and breath in my lungs, I don't think I'm done yet. And that's where, again, the story becomes more motivating. And okay, well, going back to the San Jose and the polytrauma,
Yeah.
from there, I finally get transferred. Now that they cleared me for TBI, traumatic brain injury and stuff, I get to finally start my actual recovery at Balboa Naval Medical Center in San Diego. That's why I stay here in Temecula, because
Okay.
I did all my recovery at Balboa Naval Medical Center, and that was pretty much the beginning of all my surgeries, actual therapies, prosthetics, minus all the surgery, life-saving surgeries that I had in Germany. I don't know. The ones in Walter Reed were the amputation of my foot and, patching up my mouth, that kind of stuff. Putting an actual like metal bracket in my mouth so it can help with the hole in my mouth. That was only the the surgeries that San Jose did and Walter Reed. All my other surgeries were at Balboa Naval Medical Center, where I was getting basically surgery once or twice a month for a pretty good while. I've probably had over 40 some surgeries now. A lot of them on my face, my nose. My nose was broken too. My jaw was broken. I have a hole in my mouth. The scars on my face, my retinal rupture. My shrapnel damage from my waist down, my broken kneecap, all that stuff. So yeah, that's where I did all my surgeries, basically right here at Balboa Naval Medical Center, and then finally got out. Once the Army was like, all right, we already did all your major surgeries and stuff, I finally got out of the Army back in 2013. It wasn't a decision of mine. I wanted to stay in and still go back and deploy and, do all that stuff again. Even when me and my partner first got blown up, we both said like, "Nah, patch us up and send us back." Like, and even the nurses were like,
coach, yeah, that is one
they're
of
like,
the
"You're crazy, you guys." I'm like, "No, like, you don't know what they're going through right now." I'm like, and their two best mine detectors are in this ICU room. I'm like, "No, send us back." So when the Army was like, "You can't go back. If you stay in, you gotta do an office job and never deploy again," all that. I'm like, nah. You think if I wanted to do that, I would have done that at the beginning. I'm like, nah.
Yeah.
I'm like, nah. And I'm like, if I'm not gonna do that, I'm like, sign my papers, take me out. I'm like, I'm done.
yeah.
And that's
So you get out of
literally.
there. So you get out of the military, but then you have to kind of find a way to find a life and find a path forward that doesn't just sink you into despair and the things. And you find what?
So after I get out of the Army, same thing, same questions were in my head. I'm like, what am I gonna do now? And so I started volunteering right there in San Diego still, because I still stayed close, because I still had surgeries and stuff lined up after I got out. So I still stayed there because I was still doing therapies. Volunteered for kids stuff right there in San Diego for soccer, and then for karate, where I would just go and help out whatever they needed me to. And then I ended up meeting somebody that worked at SeaWorld part-time, and they're like, "Oh, you should apply, seasonal's coming up." I'm like, what, I shouldn't. So I applied at SeaWorld 2014 of March for the seasonal, and I ended up getting a job there at SeaWorld, working in the kitchen, because I'm like, all right, what else am I good at besides being a soldier? And since I've been working at the restaurants for really young kids, so I was like, restaurant, so I worked at a restaurant right there. It was called Cafe 64, I think, at SeaWorld. So I worked there in the kitchen, in the front, in the line cashier, and then as a bartender, you got paid another $1.25 more when you do those shifts. So I'm like, put me as a bartender. So
You're like,
I did.
"Let me in. I'm doing
Yeah,
it."
then to me, I'm like, I'm already retired and stuff. So like, it's funny, going to the workforce and you get those asshole managers and stuff, and like, oh, you need to go to work. Oh, you need to. I'm like, dude, you need to be yelling, or like, you want to stay extra hours or half an hour or an hour? I'm like, no, give it to the other kid going to school or whatever, and I'm like, I'm just coming here for extra party beer money. Like,
Yeah.
I'm like,
Get out of the
filling
house.
my time. Yeah.
that's to get out of the house. Give it to the college kid that's 21 also, and trying to pay for their college tuition. Like, And that's when they're like, "Oh, you think you're better than us?" I'm like, "No, it's just I don't need the money. Give it to."
You're like, I'm sharing the wealth.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's SeaWorld, man. I'm like, relax, like, calm down.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I was just happy to be there and working. And then it was funny too, because sometimes when the other managers would come in, I remember at first it was like, "Hey, you need to get your arm out of your shirt," and I'm like, "I would if I had it."
Yeah.
And
You're like, yo, you need to get a clue.
yeah, here come all the jokes, and it was funny. Like, this girl cut her hand by accident because she tried to reach for a knife that was falling, and I was next to her, and I'm like, "All right, cool." She cut her hand, whatever, and I started doing it. And then started cutting the cake, and she left. And the manager came. She's like, "Hey, you can't do it since you don't have since your non-cutting hand, you wear the metal glove or whatever in the kitchen, so you don't cut your hand.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's a metal glove that they put on, so if the knife gets it, it just slips." And so she was like, "Oh, well, since you don't have a metal glove on your hand, you can't cut the cake." And I'm like, "Well, it's not like I can cut my hand anyways."
Yeah.
And so
Like,
right
that'd be
there was
very
like,
hard. Yeah.
and that's where again the whole people don't understand or know how to address disability stuff.
Mm-hmm.
First came in, first the kitchen manager that was a Navy vet was like, "Bro, like, come to the back, it's all right, I got you." And he's like, "You can sue her and stuff like that." I'm like, "No." I'm like, "For what?" I'm like, I'm like, "She don't know any." Yeah, she don't know any better. That's just ignorance, And then I'm like, "It's all right." Like,
Teaching moment.
and see, that's where again, like with all this disabled stuff, I want to have teaching moments because again, they don't know this stuff.
Yeah.
And see, like, "Oh, because you're not wearing a wired glove." I'm like, "Well, clearly it's meant to not cut your hand." Like, and I don't have a hand to cut, so I don't.
I'll let you figure it out.
So when it was funny because, and I have a picture of this somewhere, I'll find it. But when I was in the kitchen cutting strawberries, again, you're supposed to have a cutting glove when you're cutting something, PPE, whatever. So I am putting the wire glove
On your nub.
on my nub, and
I
I'm cutting
knew
it. And everybody there was like, "No, you didn't." And I'm like, "What? I have the wire."
I have to wear it. That's the
Right,
rules.
but see that proves your resiliency is
Yeah.
lived through your traumas and your tragedies and your whatever we want to call it, your challenges.
Well, humor,
Yeah.
sarcasm, dark humor. Again, that's all the stuff I was raised into. And then the army, and then Afghanistan. I'm like, dude, if it's gonna suck, hey, you better have some good jokes and some good music.
No, 100%, right? But I feel like those of us that exist in this rank, we're also when you're born with it, you just come out a smart ass. We just don't know how to turn it on until we're older. But if you you get handed a smart ass card, and that's how you stay alive or you stay resilient or that whatever. I always feel like that's why I enjoy the company of others who have been through a lot of stuff, because we all are dark and have a good sense of humor about things, because it's just not that.
I think the exact same way.
Yeah,
The exact same way.
Like you say, this is SeaWorld, people. I have literally
It's
been
not
blown
brain
up in a
surgery.
third world country. Can we please?
Well,
move on?
what's funny is that again, when I get confronted by people too, again, yes, this is me being very biased. I was cashier, and clearly it's the summertime. The line's out the door. This lady, older lady, mid 40s, maybe 50s. Comes in looking nice. Obviously, San Diego. Everybody's
Yeah.
looking nice, whatever. Coming in, and she comes straight to the cash register, and then she's like, "Hey, is there a line for disabled people?" And I'm like, "Oh no, there isn't." The waiting line is wide enough for wheelchairs, whatever. You got to give them that disclaimer, no. So whatever, blah blah. And then she's like, "Oh well, I'm disabled, that's why, and I can't stand for long." And so I beat her. And then again, she's wearing the most uncomfortable shoes. So of course there I go outside. I'm like, you know what? And then teachable moment. And so I go around the desk, and I pick up my pants. And I'm like, "Ma'am, I'm missing my leg too." And I'm like, "And you're coming to SeaWorld in the summertime." This is what I told her. "You're coming to SeaWorld in the summertime, so there's gonna be lots of lines. your shoes are already very uncomfortable. I'm like, I'm sure it's already 2 o'clock in the afternoon and you've been walking this whole time since you've been here. And I'm like, so please, if your feet hurt so much, there's you can rent a wheelchair, or you can go sit down and have your family members come and bring. I'm like, because it's not fair to the other 70 people waiting in front of you in line
Right, exactly.
for you just to get ahead of it for no reason.
Yeah.
Right.
How did she take that?
And then see when I said that, I saw her 30 minutes later coming down the same line. There she was, and she's like, "I'm sorry for that." And I'm like, I get it when you need it and when it happens. And believe me, I'm for it too, especially having one hand, I need help too. And whenever I'm in my wheelchair too, and my nub's busted, like, but again, unfortunately, we have to sit in line, and we have to be there too. And how hungry are you? All right, well, you're going to wait.
The community wants,
or we have our own.
The community wants equality. There you have it. You get to stand in line too. So when did you find, then it sounds like you're kind of getting close to it here. You found where you can volunteer and kind of give back.
So SeaWorld's basically while doing that, getting out of the Army. So it was basically taking one step, going to the other, going to the other, going to the other. And basically that's literally how I ended up where I'm at today. And even then I'm not nowhere. I like to say I'm the great value motivational speaker. Like the knockoff brand. But when I got donated my house, Homes for Our Troops donated my house to here in Temecula, and it was to me. At the time, now I'm moving from San Diego to Temecula. I'm like, what do I do? I want to stay close to medical care, and I'll go back to Fresno, stay here an hour away from all the medical care I've ever received. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, okay, get my house. And then that's when one day, Homes for Our Troops brings up that they're starting a running team. They want to start a running team, Team Homes for Our Troops. And that's when Disneyland had the races and stuff, the part of them. And one day too, I was going to the local store right here, the 7-Eleven, and I'm like, buying my, my little 12 packs. And then I see these two ladies in front of me wearing Temecula Adult Soccer League. And I'm like, you know what? I'm like, hey, is it okay if I try it out, if I play, And they're like, yeah, come on Tuesday and we'll see, where we can put you and whatever. I'm like, cool. So soccer was the first thing that I really got into again. And I'm like, all right. So I showed up not knowing what to expect, buy my cleat, all this. And they're like, hey, and of course, the only disabled person, amputee around, everybody that's able-bodied, if my knee wouldn't have hurt in high school, I would have made pro, both guys and girls, the 40-year-olds that didn't make it, the 30-year-old, all of them are all there, and there I am. I'm like, hey man, I'm just here for a hobby. I'm here for a good time. I'm like, I just want to run and play. I'm like, I don't want special treatment. I want you guys to treat me like a normal soccer player, and I'm like, let's see what I got. I'm like, I don't know. I haven't really played competitively. When I did try in San Diego, I only played one game, and then I had surgery, and then I was out for a month, and then I tried to play again, and I was out again because I had another surgery. So that's why I stopped. And then I'm like, all right, let me try to play it again. And so here in Temecula, I started playing soccer, and I played it for a good 2.5 years at the Temecula Adult Soccer League. And at the same time, I was getting traction on, now that you're playing soccer, like, hey, you want to run? And I'm like, sure, put me down for a half marathon. And they're like, half marathon's 13 miles. And I'm like, yeah, I can do it. And they're like, you haven't even ran or trained or nothing. I'm like, it's all right, just sign me up. I'm pretty sure I'll do it. And these other two amputees that signed up with me to do it dropped out the 2 days before, and they went to the 10K because they're like, hey man, that's too much. That's too much for us. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to do it anyways. Like, let's just see. Yeah. And sure enough, I did a half marathon. I did it at a 12:30 pace. I did it 2 hours and 42 minutes with no training, no nothing, just literally just showing up, waking up.
Being nuts, but generally your
Nike Freeze.
Balls to the walls. Yep. That's the training that it was.
Yep, and I just ran, and everybody, I surprised everybody there because even my prosthetist was like, "You haven't ran and you're running 13 miles, like." And I'm like, yeah.
That would be
And
my
then
biggest concern.
and
Would
I'm
be
like, because
that
I know my will, my
your leg couldn't handle it, but that was okay.
oh yeah, obviously at the time I was already 4 years as an amputee, you know, so I was like, oh yeah, I got this. And
I
then
got this.
my leg all the time, every day, all day, you know, I'm walking all the time. So I'm like, oh yeah, I got this. And it was literally, call it dumb luck or cocky arrogance, again, the stuff that's kept me alive and going throughout these years. But it was positivity. It was more like, no, I got this. I can do this.
So
Same
you
thing with my
alluded-
recovery and everything else. Everybody that
I'm sorry. Just you alluded to it, but so now you do motivational speaking, go to events, you do peer support as well.
well, kind of, yeah, that's where, so the running and soccer was what gained pretty much traction. And then that's when Homes for Our Troops did a video of me too. If you YouTube me, I think I told you that you see a couple of videos of me with Homes for Our Troops, Independence Fund, and then obviously Urban Valor when it came out on that latest podcast. And it was mainly all that. And when I got offered an off-road wheelchair, that was when they're like, hey, you want to get presented an off-road wheelchair on Fox Friends and Family or whatever. And they didn't need to coach me or nothing. They're like, we liked how you responded. We like how you are with the media. How would you like to be a motivational speaker? We have one more slot. We'll be having training here coming up in North Carolina soon. I'm like, what, for real? Like, I was tripping. I was like, for real, me? And they're like, yeah, we think you can handle it. They're like, you're very genuine. You're very direct. You can say it on the fly once they get you comfortable enough. I'm like, all right. And so for a whole week after that, I went to North Carolina to get briefed, I guess, on motivational speaking. And then after that, yeah, it was just like, hey, do you want to do this? And again, like I told Addie, I'm like, and I told you too, Doug, when I first met you, it's talking's not the problem. It's getting me to shut up, you know? And that's
Follow a
where
path.
they're like, all right, like, yeah. And then they're like, hey, do you want to do this? Do you want to do that? I'm like, yeah, sure. Hey, do you want to run? Do you want to run a 5K? And mind you, I don't train and run, and I don't lick an almond for my diet or nothing. I just show up and run just because the thrill and the adrenaline of running is what gets me going.
Yeah.
You know, that's my thing, is running and being able to do it. And see, again, my partner's not here, the Fallen Brothers, and now, you know, that I've been part of Challenge Athletes Foundation too, you know, the people that can't walk and run, you know, like I could do it because I can, you know, people take that for granted. And how I got involved with Challenge Athletes Foundation, it was same thing with my prosthetist. He's very close to Challenge Athletes Foundation, Nico, Peter Harsh Prosthetics here in San Diego. He was the one I was like, hey, you want to try to do a run with us? I'm like, sure. And so I did a half marathon for the Ironman, again, not knowing what to expect. They're like, we're going to do a triathlon, whatever. And like, you don't have to swim or bike. The other guys will do that, and just got to be ready to run. And I'm like, okay, you know, thinking it's like Disney or whatever. And they're like, I'm like waking up the morning of Ironman. I'm like, okay, maybe I should have done more research, because I'm like, this is huge. I'm like, this is huge, a big event, all this. I'm like, where do I go? Where do I start? And they're like, oh, you just wait. So the swimmer and the biker, I'm like, what? And they're like, yeah, it's usually one person doing this, but since we're disabled, they let us do a triathlon. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. And so when I did that, I'm like putting on my headphones, like I'm laying down, not even stretching, training, drinking water, nothing. So they're like, aren't you going to be training or not? I'm like, no. I'm like, I'll get up once they're like 40 minutes out, I'll start stretching and stuff. And so I'm putting on my headphones, and they're like, I hope you take those off before you start. And I'm like, why? And they're like, oh, if you use your headphones in your run, it'll disqualify your whole team, because Ironman don't let you use headphones. And I'm like, so I'm gonna do a half marathon with no music? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, oh. And so, yeah, there was my first time doing a half marathon with no headphones, no nothing. So there I am running it, and I actually PR'd that one. So now instead of 2:49, I did 2:42, 2 hours and 42 minutes. And so from there, they're like, oh, you want to come back again? And so and they're like, oh, how about you? That's when the next year after that, or after that Ironman, obviously, that July is when I started going to doing stuff. So when I did it, when they got to me of doing the weekend for the challenge athletes in San Diego to help with the run clinic, when they're having a weekend thing, challenge athletes, they're like, hey, it'll help you, it'll benefit you getting out of the house. What better way than to run and, help other disabled people run? And I'm like, yeah, sure. So there I go, I'm over there, getting ready, not knowing what to expect, there I am on, no sleep, on a 2-day party bender, 3-day party bender, and there I am, like, going to the morning of, and then I'm like, you see these little kids with their little prosthetics, years old, 5 years old, are you going to teach me how to run? And I'm like, hell yeah, buddy, I'll teach you how to run.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, I'll show you how to run. Like, yeah. And, you get to see different people's different stages of their running, being amputees and stuff. And they're not amputees, just people with spinal injuries or whatever their injury is, you get to see the differences in it, especially me being a below knee, you see the other below knees that don't have the prosthetics that I have or the piece that I've had or whatever. And you see, how did you do, man? And I'm like, hey, man, like, I just didn't quit, didn't give up. And, I perfected everything that I tried to do in the mirror. Every time I went to therapy, I applied myself, I listened, I did all this. And I'm like, you'll get there too. And then you get to see your younger self through these people, crying and, their families are right there. Is everything going to be okay? And again, like, oh no, my son's not disabled or my daughter's not disabled, but it's like, yes, they are. And yes, they're around, and you see the relief in the families' eyes, crying and all that. And especially me speaking Spanish also, they're like,
yeah.
They don't have people around there that were speaking Spanish to them. So they were more uncomfortable, like, oh yes, or whatever. And so when they're like, hey, can you help them? And I'm like, yeah. I'm like, and so I would ask them, like, hey, it's okay. You can ask them whatever you want. I'm like, or ask me, I'll ask them. And they're like, oh my God, thank you. It's just, we feel bad. And obviously that's what, clearly just speaking for me in the Hispanic culture too, like a lot of us don't want to cause more waves or be an inconvenience or,
Right.
Or we don't know, or the unknown, we like to stay in our lane. But I'm like, no, this is Challenge Athletes Foundation. This is literally where you need to ask these disabled questions. Where you need to, like, is my son gonna be all right? Yeah, you get to see a dude like me and other double-leg dudes that have been in this, have been doing it, or and actually Paralympics, or actually doing track and field, and I'm like, see, I'm like, they were right here too, the first 4 months, 5 months, like I was there. I'm like, and I tell them too, I'm like, yeah, it sucked. I'm like, but he's gonna need you, she's gonna need you, your support. And I'm like, if you're not gonna be there, then I'm like, don't sugarcoat it. I'm like, don't. And that's when they're like, damn. And I'm like, and that's when you realize you're talking to them through them. They're like, damn, how do you know what I've been telling them? And I'm like, it's just, that's usually the go-to for a lot of people, families that have dealt with people with disabilities. Like, they choose to ignore it, they choose to minimalize it, they choose to, like, oh no, yeah. And it's like, no, like, it's not like that. And like, oh, we didn't know it was this serious. Well, it's under your roof and it's like right next to you. Yeah. Like, you did know it was serious.
Right.
And only you're not living it. And again, like how you said about
Denial.
that dude, my brother did that. Like, yeah, but it wasn't you.
Yeah.
You don't know what this kid or this woman, this little girl, whatever they're dealing with, what they're thinking, poor as me and all this. And again, those little 4 or 5 year olds that were telling me, like, about running, like, you see their little prosthetics that are yay big, and there they are, like, just happy to be out and running with other amputees where it's normal to them. And they could be them where they trip and fall and it's like, oh no, I got it. And you're just laughing, where the normal person is over there like, oh my God, he fell, call 911.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it's cool. Unspoken rule and unspoken conversations on helping each other out.
Yeah.
For sure.
Well, just in this conversation, whether, it was what you attended or not, I think you did some things that really helped you out just getting out of the house, going to work, even though you didn't need the money, got you out. You weren't isolated. And that's so important. And so many things along the way, having the attitude that you have and feeling comfortable expressing to the new people, that they can, get through this, and you have to treat it like, accept it and then move on, and all of that is such great advice.
Acceptance is the biggest part. Because again, like you gotta, I feel like that's where, again, like my partner was struggling the most was, he didn't accept it. And he's like, oh, well, and then when people would ask him, and again, the whole, if you pray about it, you'll forget about it. Or if you do this, you'll forget about it. Like, no, we get reminders every day. You'll forget about the war. You'll forget about the war. And I'm like, no, this was because of the war.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, no, I do depend on a prosthetic and a wheelchair, which I'm currently sitting on, even though I have my prosthetic on. Like, again, that's what I use when I'm here at home is my wheelchair, because that's my break from the outside world. Because again, having an arm and a leg missing, how would I bring that in and out of my truck where it doesn't look sketchy? Hopping with one foot and bringing it down and, putting it away and slinging it around with one arm. Like, eventually
life is definitely different, but it's not over. That's for sure. So you've helped us demonstrate that today. We appreciate it. And yes, you're a great talker. But we're going to give you the last word, though. Just what's the last maybe piece of advice or maybe something that you've learned that you'd like to leave people with?
We're done already?
Yeah, we're done already. Sure.
We're done already? Yeah.
Oh, we're done already. Yeah,
cool.
Sorry. You got like 30 minutes longer than most people do, but that's all right.
Well, sorry. Yeah, I'm telling you, the story can get longer and more complex. And again, check out that podcast that I was telling you about. It was a 5-hour interview put into like 2 hours. So what's one thing that I would leave people with? Like what? What do you mean?
Do you have one piece of advice about how to live your life, whether neurotypical, neurodivergent, any of those things? If you had a piece of advice that you could give someone, what would it be?
I have like 10 different quotes that I always go to, but again, as long as there's a beat in your heart and breath in your lungs, you can still do things, and you're your own worst critic already. And this is what I like to tell the challenge athletes mainly, when they're like, how do you do it? How do you get through it? When people ask you, weird questions and stuff like that, I'm like, dude, they're going to stare at you anyways. If you have 2 eyes or 1 eye, I'm like, they're still going to stare at you anyways. I'm like, give them a show and show them what you got.
Yeah.
Because I like that. They're gonna draw their own conclusions anyways on what you can and can't do. Again, you guys being disabled yourselves, and then me, this guy's probably not gonna do it, probably needs help, or like, and then boom, you see me picking up a case of waters or my wheelchair or like running a half marathon, and like, what the hell? How's this guy doing this? And I'm like, hey, as long as you got a beat in your heart and breath in your lungs, and you say you can, like, you can. That's literally what gets me through these half marathons is like adrenaline and like, no, I'm not gonna quit. No quit. Don't quit.
Geoff Quevedo, thank you for coming on, sharing your story with Walk and Roll Live. God bless you and your family.
Each week on Walk and Roll Live, we share honest and open stories of people living with a disability.
I was into aggressive rollerblading. I was skating half pipes, jumping stairs, grinding rails.
Okay.
And like, there's one moment where we're skating to like a fast food restaurant, and I was visually following my friends. I didn't have enough like distance or preview. There's a change in texture on an asphalt, and then horns are honking their horns. I had crossed the street on a red.
Join us weekly for another powerful episode. Walk and Roll Live, wherever you get your podcasts. Life, limitless. Subscribe now.
From the Ugyar Professional Training Studios, you're listening to Walk and Roll Live, Disability Stories.
So it was really an amazing time to hang out with Geoff. I have a lot of respect and admiration for my friends that have served in war and have come back different than they are. And this story is no different. And I can't imagine, although I can be a bit of an adrenaline junkie, and I think that if I had a normal body, I might have done the military. To be a mine hound is, I mean, that's like the edge of the edge of the edge of sacrifice, because you go in knowing that it's very likely that you may encounter something that will completely change your life. I mean, when he talks about it, he talks about knowing that, like, as a mine hound, you're probably going to step on something or get very close to danger very often. And I can't imagine.
And I imagine their training and then also getting into the theater of war and doing it on a daily basis, kind of, they feel more confident that they could do the job and avoid that. But, and I guess you would have to. You can't even do your job, I think, if your level of fear is right there in front of you all the time. I mean, I like you say, I have no experience, but I imagine that's, some of that, and you just kind of push it off. Don't think about that part. But I'm
sure. So it makes our job seem way too easy.
Yes.
For the fact that there are people that constantly, I feel stressed about numbers and books and rebates. And he's like, well, I was trying not to get blown up and I did it for a long time. And then I got blown up one day. And you're like, oh yeah, well, whatever I do pales in comparison to that.
Yeah. And then a little bit of insight in that, when that happens, we might hear about that on the news and, we're mortified or whatever, and we're proud of them and, all the things. But then we don't hear about it anymore. And then, so when we hear a story like that, we know that recovery is long and difficult.
Well, yeah. I mean, you and I have talked about that a lot. People are helpful at the impetus of your injury, right? But then you have to live the rest of your life as a different person. And people get busy and life goes on and they've got things to do. And maybe you can't do them anymore. And so you kind of get left behind. And that completely changes your personality, and outlook is super important. And for those people, these are who we do this show for. We talk about this almost every episode. It's, I want people to know that they are not forgotten. They are not overlooked. We are talking to you. We are here to listen. You can write us a letter about how lonely you feel and things. Now, realize we're not counselors, but we will hear you. I will certainly listen, and I think I can speak for you on that, knowing that we're not fully professionally trained, but we are here not just as a mouthpiece, but as people who care.
And that's why we talk about the community so much, because you got to get it out. Whether it's, just hanging out with people that are like you or telling your story, I think that's because it's something that I thought would be a good thing is giving a platform for people with disabilities to tell their story, in a complete way. And, because we all know, society, how you doing? We're doing fine. But you're not on that any given day. You could just be having the worst day of your life. And when you're dealing with a disability, especially a new one that you've acquired and going through that entire change. So I think it's so therapeutic to tell that story in its entirety.
Yeah.
Whether anybody hears it or not, I think it's therapeutic, right? But,
well, I think that's the entertaining thing. I like to do that experiment sometimes when people go, how are you? If you say, oh, I'm having a really bad day. And they go, oh, well, that's great. And you're like, you didn't
even hear me. Yeah.
I like to run that experiment, even if it is an okay day, just to see who truly listens. Yeah. And sadly, 80% probably fail hard.
Yes. So that's why we are honored that they share, those intimate parts of their lives, with us and you. Thank you for everybody that's been on. And we got another one next week. We're going to be talking to Leo Zuno, and he is involved with Options for Life. Sounds like an organization like Anthesis here in Southern California. So we'll learn all about that next week right here on our show. Any closing thoughts before we run?
Nope.
That's it.
If you bump into me at the Disability Inn, I'm excited to meet you.
Good. Take lots of pictures and all that good stuff, and we'll post those and put you on the pedestal.
Just don't make me fall off. It's okay.
So thank you. Thank you for listening to Walk and Roll Live. I'm Doug Vincent. She's Addie Rich. This is Walk and Roll Live, Disability Stories, Life Limitless.
Walk and and roll live.